And maybe they refer to us in the future, maybe not. But if they do, this piece of content brought him closer to our account enough to comment. And that's the whole point of that post.
St. Patty's Day. How are you boys doing?
Good morning. Feeling great. Let's go.
Lovely. Feeling great.
Dave,
Had a men's beer league hockey game until like midnight last night, so I had the beers already, so I'm good.
Very nice. So last week, Jimmy and I had a conversation about you doing kind of I don't know what you even call it, a review. Talk to us about what you were doing Thursday last week.
Yes, so it was my new therapist, Dr. Andrew Wolfinger. It was his 60th day. So we met in person, we grabbed some food, and we reviewed all of the main things for his, like, kind of starting with the transition. So we just went through multiple steps. We can go through it really quickly, but he was 2 years an outpatient, then he did 4 years. Then he did 6 years of home health through kind of like the Medicare Part B world, and then transitioned to us. And so the number one thing was his transition. It's been incredible. We did video content, and he was able to just manipulate my back and crack my back like in 3 segments with one thrust. And he hadn't done it with these geriatrics for 6 years, right? So he's like a diamond in the rough. But the overview of his performance has been great. We try to hit on like every potential topic, including like his evaluation performance and his conversion rates and how he's doing. He's getting reviews from clients, Google reviews mentioning his name. He's getting text messages sent to him directly that he's screenshotting and sending to me, or the patient or client is emailing me in the same email or text chat with him, or to me directly saying about how fantastic he is and all that. Now, I'm like, I already know all this, but it's still great to get it validated and confirmed elsewhere by all of our other patients and clients. And now his caseload has been ramping up. So we've had a whole bunch of things outside of our control, right? He had one client that had shingles, and that was the reason for the back pain. We had a client that I kind of fumbled. I made the whole post about it on the video with cost per visit through their out-of-network insurance, and that scenario. We had other people have like medical issues, so they missed some visits, whether they got admitted to the hospital or whatever. But the whole point was to sit and have a meeting and say, hey, how are things going? Like from my side, we're going to hit on all these topics, and you are doing great with pretty much everything that I had expected and kind of demand of my physical therapist. And so there was no real critical issues or feedback. His caseload now is, I think he's got like 18 booked this week, but we're like adding, even yesterday, adding evals for him for Thursday. And then he got people from yesterday on Monday who he didn't have booked out for later this week. So we're hoping he's like cracking 20 visits for this week. And obviously we'll go back and forth on this, but that was like the main point of, I had to miss our breakfast club to speak with him about this and go over his 60-day performance, because I think it's going great, but I want to hear from him. Like, is there any resources he needs? What does he need from us? How do you perceive everything? So obviously it's a two-way street.
Totally.
Jimmy, have you ever done something like I'm not going to call it a peer review, but like progress report or review on an employee that you're responsible for to go over how things are progressing?
In radio, you mean? Because I didn't oversee anybody in PT. Yeah, in radio as the program director, that was sort of my main job. So like every day, I would move the morning show every day, because the morning show was like sort of the most important. So that was more frequent but less deep. And then monthly or quarterly, we would sort of dive into that. And then everybody else was weekly. Once a week, there was these things called cassette tapes. You would tape yourself every day, and then just you, not the music, just you. And then you'd come in my office, and I would just hit fast forward and then play, and we'd just listen. It was the most uncomfortable 29 minutes of my week. But when I was, having that done to me, I could still think of things that like I improved from it. Like what? But once I had a boss who like explained like, this isn't to get you in trouble. Like this is so we can work together. Things really changed. And I lucked out. I had some really great bosses. So I thinking I sort of had some luck there. So to hear you're doing that is a big deal. Like, you know how many times I've seen a meme where it's like, people like sort of play on the idea. They get an email from their boss and it's like, hey, can we talk? And it's like immediately goes into panic mode. And it's like that like is a way to live. But if someone's like, hey, can we talk? Because we're going to go over this. Just BTW, like you're doing great. And this is not a negative thing. It is an amazing thing to say to people. Like it's a big deal.
Dave, have you done any like training or self-improvement on how you conduct these kinds of meetings with staff?
Yes. So my business coach, Sturdy McKee, has helped me with this in terms of having like a formal process, what to hit on. Because here's the thing, guys, like if I didn't, and I'm not saying to have a coach, but I know I need a coach because otherwise I will just do things so freestyled. They'll be different every single time. They'll be off the cuff. I'll probably harp way too much on things that are, I don't know, like secondary or something. Like obviously, like the main thing for a physical therapist, right? Their main function is to evaluate patients and then to treat patients. And obviously they have to do their notes too. But I would kind of go pie in the sky. I get too mixed up in like, all right, this concierge approach, and you got to be like prompt, and you got to not talk about politics, and you got to kind of you got to be likable, and you got to sell each visit and demonstrate the value every time. And Sturdy is like, dude, like evaluate patients, do the note, book follow-up visits, get them committed to the plan of care. That's so short right there. And I'm like, no, there's all this other stuff. And we got to like surprise and delight them and, you know, bring a t-shirt, a branded t-shirt for them, or we got to whatever, like all this stuff. So I needed Sturdy to help kind of rein me in with this specifically. I did it a little bit at my last W-2 job, like 10 years ago. I was a clinic director, but they didn't hand me a playbook of like, here's what to say, here's what not to say, here are the main functions of a staff physical therapist. Here, like we did track visits there, so that kind of helped get me ready for this. So yeah, a little bit at a previous job, but for sure right now.
You also just have such amazing tool, like that tool that you're using to record things. Like it's not like you're going into these things blind, which I think is really powerful.
I think that's the thing. Like I remember going back, I mean, even before physical therapy, I owned other businesses. I was younger than the people that I was reviewing and talking about performance. And I can remember in the beginning, you know, I had no objective measures. I had no idea what I was really doing. We were talking about more feelings and are you enjoying it and are your needs being met? It wasn't until we really took kind of the training of creating a real business, establishing metrics, key performance indicators, and be like, look, here's your spot on the org board. This is what you're responsible for. These are your metrics. They're up, they're down, they're stable. Like what can we do to make them better? What can we do, you know, to improve? But even with that, I will say toward the end, like we haven't had, you know, new employees and stuff for a decade, but I would still go into these meetings thinking, man, I nailed it. I was motivating and I got them pumped up and we talked about all these great things. And then I find out later the person went home and cried because they thought that I was criticizing everything that they were doing and not, you know, supporting them. So it's like what I said and what I heard in my head was absolutely not what they heard in their head. And, you know, if I was still in that world, I would have to go get training. I would have to go like talk to people. I wonder how it has changed in a post-AI world where now you can have ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these platforms really help kind of create the framework for a review that's, you know, encouraging and promotes the person and gets them to do what we need them to do. That would be interesting. I never plan on going back to that world, but for others that are hiring, I think it'd be a really interesting case study.
I mean, you know, Larry Benz, I've been helping him create some content. He's like digging into like metrics. And like, this is a guy who's like sat atop one of the largest PT organizations in the country. Now he sits atop like a dental MSO because he can translate everything he's learned from PT to dental. He could walk into surgery tomorrow, right? Because his big thing is, right, you come full circle, it's people. Like his latest article was, EBITDA is not a great measure. Culture drives EBITDA. EBITDA doesn't drive culture. And if it did, it would drive the crappiest culture on the planet, right? I just did another episode with Katie Holterman, who's worked in sort of like the KPI world. And she's like, you can't have 37 KPIs. And also, I have to feel like I can manipulate the KPI. I remember in radio, they were like, your bonuses will be based on ratings. And ratings are arbitrary. Like, I could do great and it doesn't do anything. Well, we have to anchor the staff in a KPI or else they won't try. And I'm like, then you're hiring the wrong people, right? Like, I looked around the room. I was like, nobody here really even cares about the bonus. What they care about is kicking ass every day, but make sure they feel like what they're kicking ass at actually helps the rest of the organization also kick. Because one day we're all going to be dirt, right? And the bonuses are nice, but really it's like, do I have a great work environment? Do I like what I'm doing? And then I'll do it really, really hard every single day, but just don't make me feel bad about it, right?
But Dave, I think what Tony was talking about, I think what Tony was talking about was your 1-star review.
Oh, you wanted to bring that up? That's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, right. That was one thing we were going to talk about. This was I can't really go through the whole story, but it had something to do with the out of network insurance allowable amount, but there were some other things that resulted in me saying like, okay, there might be potential litigation, but of another healthcare provider. And I was just trying to exit the whole scenario of the patient encounter. Does that make sense? High level.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was another thing why the client got irate. And I knew that it was going to be harder to cut them off later. So I was like, it was 2 visits in. Andrew had already been there. And I'm like, let's just cut it off. So that was the 1-star. That was one of the 1-star Google reviews. We have 2. So we still have a 97% track record of 5-star reviews. So obviously we're at like a 4.9 rating or whatever on Google. I thought, you know what? and I didn't read it verbatim, but I put it up on the screen. I'm going to make a video of this 1-star Google review. And I'm thinking, I was trying to channel Jimmy and Tony. I'm like, what, like, this would be remarkable. This would be unique. Like, how come healthcare providers never do this? I've never seen any healthcare provider read out loud their 1-star Google reviews or put them on the screen or describe it or whatever. So I wanted to put it on there. I owned it, obviously, kind of describe what was going on. It was our fault. So totally get it. Never asked the patient to take it down. Didn't put that in the response. I did use ChatGPT to write a response that's public to the 1-star Google review. That's kind of like, I want to own it. I want to take accountability. I also want to demonstrate like promptness or professionalism or whatever for prospective patients who might look at our Google profile, hit lowest reviews. Cause I know I do that sometimes with restaurants and other places. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's leave this one up. Let's not try to fight it or whatever, because I think Jimmy and I talked about it briefly. I believe that like, it's, you want to see some of the normal humanistic, natural things that happen. Like some of the wrinkles, some of the gray hairs, whatever of a business. Like, so I made that video, read the Google review a little bit, gave a little bit of a synopsis, but then I also segued right into a 5-star Google review because I just got it like that morning. But I was like, I figure like this is not probably going to go viral, but I'm like, this is a piece of content that no one else is doing. I know everyone else's practice has to have at least 1-star Google review. Like, just there's something where they drop the ball somewhere, and no one else really owns it or creates content around it. I'm like, why wouldn't I? It's not going to go supernova viral, but at the same time, I had a physician that I never met that I'm connected with on Instagram from New York City. And I had commented on one of his posts 1 or 2 weeks before that. He commented on that post and was like, hey man, all good. Like, it happens. We've been there, keep your head up, keep moving, whatever, said something nice. And then I replied, oh, hey, Dr. Razzani, also, I appreciate it. Thanks. You're right. It happens. All good, blah, blah, blah. So now it's like that piece of content might have bridged the gap between this other physician who's never referred to us, and maybe they refer to us in the future, maybe not. But if they do, this piece of content brought him closer to our account enough to comment. And that's the whole point of that post.
Yep.
Yeah, I think
real.
that's the thing. Hang on, Jimmy. Any reasonable person is going to understand they're going to recognize an unreasonable response. They're going to recognize, the situation. And so you're not trying to convince somebody off the street who doesn't know anything. You're talking to that doctor who might have come across that feed. So that's why I think it's such a brilliant strategy.
Yeah, almost like my internet's down, but I would have already been on ChatGPT if it wasn't, and I would say, what's the most valuable out of a 5-star scale? Because I think a 5 out of 5 is less valuable than like a 4.8. Because when I see 5.0, I either think there's no reviews, right? But you can see that right next to the out of how many. But if I see too many 5s, I'm sort of like, this is fake. It's not a review anymore. It's not a scale, right? In your first 100, you're like, I know he went and he got all his cousins, all of his buddies from his softball team. Hey, everybody, drop a review. Like, we're not dumb. We know how to game the system. And when I see us, I don't want to be for everybody. I'm not pizza or, Walmart or ice cream, right? I loved, and I think I mentioned this, David, I got to look up who it was. This just shows like what someone like Seth Godin would do or Gary Vee. It was a barbecue restaurant like somewhere down south, and they put a 1-star review on their employees' T-shirts. And it was like, no vegetarian options, 1 star. And it was like, great, we're Bubba's Meat Shack. And it was like, yes, lean into it. I still talk about my 10 years later, my 1-star review on iTunes. I had a guest whose aunt, I remember that's a little bit older, and she complained that half of her stereo wasn't working, and I was like, I can't fix your stereo, but I think she gave an entire diatribe of that, and I screenshotted the of that. I'm like, this is great. But listen, this is what I was taught in public relations. There's 3 parts of an apology. You have to say the words, I'm sorry. I recognize what I did hurt you, or if this is, you own it. The second part is you own it. And the third is, this won't happen again, or I'm going to rectify it. So it's like, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry that how this made you feel. That's the ultimate PR cop out. I'm sorry that was your experience. Don't do that. That's even worse. That's negative 100 points. And then going forward, this will not happen again. I hope that's not a reflection of who you think we are. So I think you did the opposite, which is you leaned into it, which is the smartest thing to do.
Dave, do you still feel like Google reviews are a powerful indicator for new patients picking you over somebody else?
I do. I previously had another Google profile page that was taken down. It had like 101 Google reviews. And then we had to build back up. So now we're at like 60 or something like that. So we're trying to build it back up. But right now we're running a lot of Google ads, but like there's times where I'll turn everything down to like $1 a day. But if I had like an influx of, a week with like 3 Google reviews or something, there seems to be a correlation between when there's a Google review placed, that's obviously a 5-star Google review, usually a Google review posted for my practice or several of them, then all of a sudden there's usually like a bump or a wave of new organic calls that are people calling in.
Yeah.
I just spoke to someone yesterday on the phone, and the type of person that like says that we always want to ask like, how did you hear about us and all that? And if it's one of those like high level, like high intellect type people who say that they went online and they did their research and then they came across us and that's like a win for them because they're trying to find the right fit and they're seeing what else is out there. And they're specifically calling in for us. Then obviously they didn't balk on the pricing. But people mention the Google reviews. Not always, but sometimes people, Tony, will specifically say, I was impressed by all your Google reviews, your glowing Google reviews, like the details of them and all that. So like people will remark about them. So
what are you doing right now to drive those Google reviews?
I mean, you have to ask, right? So like I coach my therapist on asking in person first. So I would be like, during the visit, or at the end of the visit, hey, Tony, you mentioned that you liked whatever. You liked that I was able to come early because you had a Zoom call, or you like that you can do the first visit in our office and then the follow-ups in your home if you wanted to, because sometimes we get that request. Whatever Tony or the patient says like they liked, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You came early because I had a work call, or you readjusted. I really appreciate it. Whatever they say, thank you, or you got my stiff knee moving better. We have to ask in person first. Is the best approach to answer the question of how are we driving these? Ask in person first. Gauge their response. If they're like, yeah, of course, like no problem, like absolutely. Once you hear that, then now you have the text email.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say permission. Now I have the text and email permission because the therapist is going to continue to go treat that patient. So I want the therapist to have our link and email and text them the link and the exact instructions. Like, hey, here's the link. You said we already know you have a Gmail account. Obviously, they needed a Gmail account to post a Google review. Click this link, rate and review. The thing that you just mentioned, like I want to make it easy for them. The thing that you just mentioned that you were happy about, like the knee treatment and to loosen your knee up, or the promptness, or you called and we came the next day, or whatever you just said there, or they'll text it like that. The easiest thing is when they text it to me or to the therapist, and the therapist screenshots it to me. I say to the therapist, text Tony, hey, the thing that you just said, Tony, can you click this link, copy paste it, and just put it on this Google review? Like they're already saying it. So how do we drive it? I think that there's too many texts, or I think there's too many like email automation things that like it's just sending out like for no reason. But you almost guarantee a 5-star Google review when you ask it in person. This is my approach. Ask it in person, get like their response. Sometimes people are like, no, I don't do online reviews. And I'm like, oh, well, that's awkward, but that's for us, but all right. Like, you know what I mean? So they say yes, ask in person, they say yes, and then hit them up with text and email responses every couple days or whatever. And then do that for weeks until they do it. Because they already said yes in person. That for us is the best approach on how to drive these.
I wonder too, like, so we still use appointment cards.
Yep.
Our EMR sends reminders through email and through text, but a lot of patients still want these appointment cards. And on the front, like I haven't gotten new cards in probably 15 years, but the logo, complete waste of space. I just wonder if this is something that I could just phone number, QR code that takes you straight to the Google review, days on the back with the time, and just be like, hey, if you're enjoying what's going on here, scan the QR code with your phone and it'd be great for you to leave us a review.
Here's a good question for both of you live. Right now, I don't know if I have one nearby. I don't know if I have one. My business cards have a QR code that links to our website for the online booking. Now, I told you guys before that we don't allow new patients to do online booking, but we allow current patients to do online booking. We already have a QR code on the back. Right now, design-wise, QR code, 2 QR codes are we talking about now? Would that be too many? Or maybe one on the back, one on the front? The one on the front is for the Google review. The one on the back is to book your next visit. I know none of us are like design geniuses, but what are the aesthetics around that?
I would go 1 QR code to a landing page with multiple options. Like, so it'd be like
one of those link trees or whatever.
Yeah.
Or even I wonder if you could get, like, the priority would be book the appointment.
Yes.
So I think I would stick with that. But then I wonder if you could go to, the QR code, book the appointment, and then the confirmation page that comes after the booked appointment has the link to Google review.
Love it. Love it. Listen, anyone watching or listening, this is significant value. Like, only if you want to like help more people and make more money. Like, this is the stuff in the trenches that moves the needle.
This is why I miss like being in an office. Like, love the freedom of
this is the office. This is the nationwide digital office for physical therapy.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, you want people who like have understand. You want a bunch of I always find it funny. Like, I'm going to the APTA Ohio's gala and conference in a couple of weeks. I'm doing my MC hosting duties there. And I saw in one of their copies, it was like, come spend 2 days with like-minded individuals. And I hate that phrase. And because what I want is, I want people who are like, maybe have similar experiences, but that we view it differently. Like, maybe there's one foot in understanding what we do, and then another. It's like, when I asked my buddy Drew, about video. And he's like, why don't you just do it like this? I'm like, I would have never thought about that because that's all he does. And meanwhile, I do that 4% of my time. So I do love me some good like-minded individuals. But what I also love is like people who do crazy things I don't do. Did you ever hear about the 3M? You know, 3M that makes like the Scotch tape? They think like they had a bunch of these engineering problems around the world. And one smart guy, not an engineer, was like, what are these problems worth? They just had essentially like in the post office where they have wanted posters. They had all these problems. And the guy like put a value on it. And he goes, what if we just put them on this website thing and put a bounty on them? And then you had people from around the world crowdsourcing for these and getting paid for it well, but whatever they were paying, it was a fraction, whatever the result was going to be. So it's like, where do you do this? I know some people, right now we're in the point where we knock learning because people are like, screw a coach, screw courses, screw podcasts, screw books. It's all about do it. And I'm not disagreeing from a guy who posts podcasts and videos. But just going in blind, that's your move now? Like, that's the thing to dunk on is learning about stuff? I'm not saying only learn and wait and wait and wait for the perfect moment. There isn't one. What I'm saying is like a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think the pendulum's always going to swing. I don't know if you guys saw it. I was on my drive back from New York listening to these podcasts, and they were talking about Alpha School. And Alpha School is a K through 12 new kind of education model where they have the students. I wonder if they would consider this for a mini day. They have the students spend about 2 hours on a custom built AI that guides their education. So the kids are interacting with AI. Yes, they're on a screen. Yes, there's the negative aspect of that. But then the rest of the school day, the kids are doing free learning. They're doing projects. They're working on actually like applying the things that they're learning. There's elements of Montessori. There's elements of homeschooling. There's all these elements combined built around an AI backbone. Now, the things that I thought were interesting about this and where I said this could apply to PT education was they're not hiring teachers. They're hiring facilitators. They start at 6 figures. So a facilitator gets paid 6 figures, low 6 figures, and goes up. It could be a teacher, but it doesn't have to be a teacher. A lot of them are like retired professionals that want to give back and want to engage with young people. And it's a really cool model. You know, of course, they're claiming that their SAT scores are in the high, like 1500s, and their ACTs and all this stuff. Performance is amazing. But I go back to, you know, in the PT world, every time I ask this question, I always get the same non-answer. I'm like, guys, you're in the DPT programs, whatever university you're at, how much are you using AI? How much are your educators using AI? Either to create like real patient cases, to act like a patient, to do all of these things, to help you critically think. Like you come up with a plan, AI analyzes your plan, and you guys go back and forth on how do you justify what you want to do with this patient? Nobody has ever said, yes, my program is, you know, utilizing AI on a daily basis. My professors are using it. And I'm like, how are we pumping out licensed individuals that have zero connection to that world?
Oh, I know the answer. I mean, my best friend is a teacher. And I remember we had conversations of like, he teaches history, right? And it's like, I've said, what fun things do you do? And he's like, we stick to the curriculum, man. I have to. Or like my job, my pension are in question. Well, are you doing the best practices? He's like, no, I'm doing the same thing I did 19 years ago. Maybe I've got like a video to play now. And I go, why do you think that is? And he's like, it's because the rules. And I'm like, well, who makes the rules? The people who have all the most to lose, right? So we don't change because I have to justify the top's existence. So, because I said to him years ago when I was looking to switch from radio, my mom told me this for years. You love talking, you love interacting, you'd be a great teacher. And my best friend, you know, these people know different versions of you. And my buddy Brian was like, you could do it, you'd hate it. He goes, because whatever you think and whatever you see in teaching, that ain't it. He's like, that's not it. He's like, I can't do that. And this is a second generation teacher. Both of his parents were teachers. Him and his brother are teachers. And he's like, it just isn't it. You you need a complete dry erase board wipe, like what you're talking about with Alpha School, so that the results don't justify the administrator's salaries or the school's admissions. Here's the obvious example. High school starts first, then middle school, then elementary school. It's just how it is. But we know it should be reversed. Why? Because the little ones are up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We don't have a problem with getting them out of the bed. And the high schoolers, we know biologically do not do well. Not that they're lazy. They're going through like the biggest growth stage ever, right? We don't do it. I asked my buddy why. He goes, teachers unions, we won't allow it. I signed up to be a high school teacher because I wanted to go to school here to get out at this time. It'll never happen. So why do we change it? The tail wags the dog.
Yeah, the other aspects of that, of course, go back to my kids are 3 of the 4 are in traditional models, traditional schools. They're gouging their eyes out 7 hours a day, sitting in a class. They already learned the concept first 15 minutes. I go back to my patients that are out there in the gym. They forgot 97% of everything I showed them, in 60 minutes. Why am I not just taking the best 3 minutes of the session, doubling down on that and letting them leave? One thing, give me one thing that's going to give me the most benefit, and I'll go do it for the next 24 hours.
Correct. Because in traditional models, we have to justify the next 46 minutes. We're trying to keep them busy, right? It's about the person giving the lesson, justifying it well, this is complicated. You can't just go do this willy-nilly. You couldn't just read a book and learn it. I read a book and learned it. That's how I learned it. Why couldn't you just do it?
I read the book and then listened to the professor read the book to me again. That was my college experience.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I whenever I I help people with presentations and their slide has 72 words on, I go, I can read in my mind faster than you can out loud. What do you do? All I just did was look at that slide. I read it, tuned you completely out because we can't do 2 things really well. So I used to help CEOs and C-suite people with presentations. So whenever we'd practice it, if they would ever practice, they never wanted to practice with me because what the hell do I know? When they bring up a slide, I would move the flashlight from them to the slide, and they'd keep talking, and I would put my hand up like, shut up. And when I was done at a reasonable rate, I'd go back to them and they're like, what the hell is that? I'm like, the audience just started reading. The student understands after the first 4 or 5 go-throughs, oh, get it. Read the first 2 pages, and then the lesson's going to be, and the answer's somewhere in the text. Can you speed read? It's usually a bolded word. We gamify things ourselves. Why not gamify the right way? We know the rules. We just don't adhere to them.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE at CONCIERGE, painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.